Hi, this is Katrin Parker back with more Awoken by Sarah Ellenson. Sorry, I forgot to upload the last video for like 2 weeks. My hair is not doing what I wanted today, so I am wearing my finest, most $7 costing clip-in hair extensions. All for you. And we're gonna dive right into chapter 2, which is titled Clairvoyance. In the prologue, Andromeda Slate, not Swan or Steel, it's Slate, it's completely different. She's had a dream about a mysterious Cthulhu that turns into a sexy boy. We've all been there. And then in chapter 1 we're introduced to her parents, Howard and Sonia, because this book is all about subtlety. And in chapter 2 we're going to high school. And here comes Flora. Nope. Alright, chapter 2, Clairvoyance. Portsmouth High was a completely different shade of miserable than the rest of the town. Oh, she fucking hates her family, her house, her friends, her town. I mean, that's the only actual believable part. With its off-white halls stretching around like a maze, antique stairs running up and down, old worn wooden finish, deep red curtains, and a smell like dust and lead paint. It made me long for the days of living in the city and going to a school that didn't feel like a rejected haunted mansion. But those days, the neon lights, the laughter, and the friends I'd left behind in San Diego, I had to accept that they were over, and there was nothing to do but keep getting used to it. This was my life now, with all its bland, white blankness and bland, creaky old fishing boats and the bland, creepy old school I had to force myself to go to every single day. Now she's got a ride here with her best friend Bree, who she hates. Anyway, Bree and I had somehow arrived early, and I sat down on the front stairs, postponing going inside for a few more precious minutes as I looked up at the iron blue morning. A cold wind blew in like a message from the rising sun, tossing the gold and red leaves of autumn around like a crackling tornado. "Bree," I said. Bree, sitting at my side, gave me an inquisitive look as she cracked open a can of Pepsi. Bridget Fifen was the very first friend I made in Portsmouth. We'd become inseparable over the past couple of years, but I could still never quite figure out why someone like Bree would want to hang out with me. She had the kind of... She was just so full of life in a careless way. She had the kind of fiery, curly red hair that should only exist in Disney movies. Her hazel eyes always seemed to shimmer with glee and mischief, and her face was dusted with freckles that everyone said made her adorable. She was as loud and quirky as her Goodwill clothes, and being the de facto leader of the school's thespians, as she liked to call them, that it is in quotes, came naturally to her. On top of all that, she had the annoying habit of being crazy smart in just everything. Nothing seemed too difficult for Bree, not even dealing with the taunts or catcalls that her edging toward marshmallow curves occasionally earned her. Instead, she could just smile and laugh and flick her hair at whatever life threw her way. She was a perfect friend, the life of the party. Being friends with Bridget Fifen could really make a girl feel inadequate. Not that it was her fault. Bree would never do anything to put a person down. I just couldn't help it. Bree was just so much more than me. Okay, so as this continues, you will find out Andromeda fucking hates Bree. She thinks she's a dumb fat slut. And I'm not really exaggerating. There's this little paragraph here about how great Bree is, and then everything afterwards is just straight contempt. Which is, I don't think is on purpose. I've only read halfway through. I haven't, read completely the whole book, but I don't think it's on purpose. I sighed deeply. I had the weirdest dream last night. She lifted a ginger eyebrow. Was it the one with the guy in the panda mask again? Because that was kinda wicked hilarious. Wasn't funny, Bree, I snapped softly. It was just weird. And nice, I thought suddenly, surprising myself. It was that kind of dream then, Bree questioned, and took a sip of her pop. She set it down on the step and gave me a look. Don't take this the wrong way, but I'd rather not hear about it. No, it wasn't like that, I ejaculated exasperatedly, as one does. There was this boy, and no offense, Andy, but I think you should probably keep this to yourself, she said, her face reddening. I'm glad you had a weird dream, but it's not like you're the only one. It's totally normal. So don't worry about it, huh? This one is not normal because it has a Cthulhu in it, but you know. No, you don't understand, I exclaimed irritably. Just let me explain, okay? Bree sighed in resignation because she was used to my fucking bullshit. Bree sighed in resignation and took another sip of her pop as I told her everything I remembered from the vivid dream. The eldritch stone ruins, the thick blanket of fog, the creature in the deep, the godlike boy who had saved me from it, and the crashing of the waves that punctuated every moment. And then I was falling, everything crumbling away, and I was home, I said softly. Bree nodded, taking one last swig. That's actually pretty wicked, she said. Sorry for assuming, Andy. She chuckled carelessly. Pretty surreal stuff, though. Makes me wish I still had that dream interpretation book. You don't have to go that far to interpret a dream about, that a teenage girl is having about a tentacle monster turning into a handsome boy. You'd have a harder time, interpreting a dream about a train going through a bunch of tunnels. Anyway, I sighed. Bree clearly didn't understand, or just didn't care. To her, it was just one more weird quirk of Andy Slade, wasn't it? Just a silly little dream. Andy has no weird quirks. She's fucking boring. Maybe she was right, too. What did it matter? I'd woken up once again to life in the town where excitement went to die, after all. There was no point in dwelling on dreams, no matter how entrancing they were. It's like straight Harry Potter, though, right? The halls of Portsmouth High were bustling. Oh yeah, this is the bit where I feel very glad that I decided not to do, voices with accents for all the characters. I wasn't seriously considering it for very long anyway. The halls of Portsmouth High were bustling as everyone rushed to their lockers to grab books, papers, folders and such. I hurried to mine and ran into an old friend waiting there, the only remainder of my San Diego life that was still with me. He was standing beside my locker, frowning down at his watch. He wears a watch. Oh my god, it's Doug Clark. His face brightened when he saw me. Oh, hi Andy, how are you? I've been waiting. I've got something to show you that you're gonna love. Yeah, boys say that a lot. Hey, Vic, I replied, feeling too tired to be as excited as he was. Bree wasn't, though. Maybe if she weren't so fond of sugary drinks so early in the morning, she'd learn to relax. Andy hates Bree. Heya, Vic, how are ya? Vic was short for Vivek Mayank, and that was what I'd called him ever since we were kids growing up in California. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, I'm doing my best. I'd known him for so long that he, being 4 months younger, was like a little brother to me. Parentheses, except Indian, of course. I don't know. Anytime a guy is like a brother to you, that's not what he thinks. Our parents had been friends since his migrated from Bombay when we were in first grade, and when his mum and dad scored positions with Miskatonic's archaeology department, they'd hooked my parents up with the biology department, and our families moved across the country within a month of each other, just in time for me and Vic to start high school. It seemed like he'd acclimated to life on the East Coast a lot better than I had. Made friends, joined clubs, all that sort of stuff. Though I couldn't help but wonder why he'd never had a girlfriend. There are a couple reasons. Either he likes you, or... And he really shouldn't like her. Oh my god, she's such a fucking bitch. I'm sorry, I'm telling you so much stuff about how Andromeda Slate is dumb and a bitch and mean and everything. It hasn't really come across yet in the books. I'm sorry. I couldn't help wonder why he'd never had a girlfriend. With his creamed coffee skin, his cheesy bright smile, curly dark locks, deep amber eyes, lithe physique, the faint accent, almost British, that made him sound more sophisticated than I knew he was. You'd think he could have found someone. Sadly, poor Vic was a bit of a coward around other girls. If only he were as brave with them as he was with me, he'd probably have someone by now. This time the someone actually is in italics. My own lack of attachment, on the other hand, was no mystery. There just wasn't anyone that seemed to understand me here. Finding a friend in Bree had definitely been the exception, but don't even get me started on the Portsmouth boys. Very good, thank you, Vic answered Bree, a question that we have all long since forgotten. But listen, you won't believe what my parents got for Miskatonic. Probably some old broken pottery or slabs of concrete or something, I thought. Concrete? Vic was always geeking out about ancient artifacts and figurines and all that. I could understand why. His parents were archaeology professors, and growing up Hindu probably made him really big on mythology. I don't know, I didn't grow up Hindu. Confirm or deny in the comments, I guess. I couldn't blame him too much for it. Blame him for being excited about an area of historical study. What'd they get? Inquired Bree nonchalantly as she ripped open a bag of chips. See, good girls don't eat, right? The heroines of books like this, they're never hungry, they never eat. The dumb sluts who have all the friends and boyfriends, they eat. And they have marshmallow-like curves. And they're too stupid to be truly understood by a handsome Cthulhu. Well, replied Vic excitedly, it's really famous. They say it's cursed even. My parents have been wanting to get a hold of it for decades. He looked at me like he thought his next words would make my day. It's this creepy old book called the... He paused dramatically. Necronomicon. A book! Now that I hadn't expected. Vic knew how I loved books, especially old ones. When I usually thought of archaeology and that stuff, I thought of pots and arrowheads and junk. But even if it were unreadable and ancient, a book was something I could get behind. What's it about? Asked Bree. If it's ancient, I said reasonably, he probably doesn't know yet. Yeah, his parents have been searching for this book for decades and no one has any idea what's in it. Actually, I do know, Vic corrected. They say it's an eldritch tome of forbidden magic. Bree laughed. Spooky stuff. I know, said Vic. Who knows, though? It's so rare, maybe it does have some power. There's no such thing as magic, though, said Bree, munching on a chip. They've done studies. Still sounds fun, though. I love that. No, man, there are studies. I was thinking that later, after school, Vic went on, yet as he continued to talk, I found myself drifting off, because I'm a shitty friend. The memory of the waves from my dream crashing against the rocks, the memory of the majestic boy gazing at me with royal, commanding eyes that shone with the emerald light of eternity, the sweet smell of salt water in the moist air. You want to do it then? Bree's words shook me out of my reverie. Huh? We're thinking of going to the auditorium after school, Vic explained, to actually read from the Necronomicon. Wait, you have it here? I asked. Mother and father won't miss it. They're not getting home until 7 tonight. I bet Vic a good $5 that nothing's going to happen. Bree smirked confidently. And no matter what happens, I bet it's going to get interesting. My life's been divided into 1-hour chunks, I thought. Class, class, class. 40 minutes for lunch. Class, class, class. Go home. Do homework. Eat dinner and try not to talk to my parents as they try not to understand me. Then try to amuse myself by reading or countless other empty activities before going to sleep. Then wake up, go to school, class, class, class. It would do me good to mix things up a bit, even if it meant staying at school longer than I had to. Why not? I decided nonchalantly. Right after school? Yeah, I'll see. Vic was cut off as the shrill ring of the bell crashed into our conversation. He sighed laboriously and glanced down the hall. I'm sorry, I've got to go. Spanish. Ugh, we've got a quiz on the perfect tense. I'll see you guys in 3rd period, okay? See you there, Vic, called Bree as he disappeared around the corner. Oh, he disappeared. Magic is real. We had to hurry too. English class for us, and I didn't want to miss a minute of it. I know a lot of people at my age hated reading, but I'd always loved getting lost in the romance of the old days. So much wrong with that paragraph, I don't even know where to start. If you really love reading as a teen, usually hate English because they make you read the dumbest fucking books, and then they make you like dissect them until they're not interesting anymore. I don't know. I'm sure literary analysis is actually pretty interesting, but the way it's taught in school just ruins books for me. Anyway, more about how amazingly clever Andromeda Slate is. I'd read A Midsummer Night's Dream 1,002 times. A Midsummer Night's Dream, really? Really? Andi is dumb. There's no way she understands the jokes, so I don't know what she sees in it. I'm sorry, I'm going to stop with the commentary and just, read for a little bit. Every time I read it was just as magical and strange as the first. Yeah, no wonder she doesn't understand any of it. Sorry, going to read. Fairies and... Oh, but that day in English class, I found myself drifting off. Fairies and magic, love and destiny. It was all so wonderful, yet all so distant from me. So unlike my own dull world. It was a sweet dream, like the one that kept fluttering around in my head with the gumption of a newborn butterfly. Absent-mindedly, I pulled out a clean sheet of paper and tried to imagine the boy from my dream on it. It was harder now, hours away from the land of sleep. The image came back to me, though, when Mrs. Phillips started rambling on about mythology and Shakespeare. Mythology. The boy had looked like someone from mythology to me. So larger than life and so inhumanly handsome. He looked like an Adonis, or even better, a Cupid. Not that pudgy baby with angel wings most people think of, but the handsome young Greek god. I sighed heavily, remembering the story. Forbidden love. Cupid, romancing innocent, beautiful Suki in the secret dark. How do people pronounce it? Do they say it's Psyche, the way, we say it in English, or do they say it's Suki? I don't know. The terrible things Suki had to suffer before she earned the right to truly marry her Cupid. Most of all, though, I could envision Cupid standing in the dark with those bright, gleaming green eyes. And then I was gone for a moment in the darkness. Then I was Suki, or Psyche, gazing into the emerald eyes of Cupid, and knowing that he had another name. The crashing of great waves came back as the Cupid consumed me with his simmering gaze, louder and faster this time. Miss Slate? Crap! Yeah, she's having a horny daydream. Mrs. Phillips, a frumpy old biddy with glasses that sank into her face, was giving me a look that Bree would have called wicked harsh. I tried to grin back. Oh, hi. Sorry, what was the question? I felt like I was about to melt with embarrassment. I glanced at my desk for my book and found something else instead. A work of art. Somehow my hand had been drawing by itself, slowly tracing out the image of a very familiar, very impossible boy. He looked up at me from the paper with an expression that seemed too real for a mere drawing. The question, scolded Mrs. Phillips coldly, was about the purpose of the scene in which Bottom turns into a donkey. Hands down, best scene. Miss Slate, you are one of my best students, but that's no excuse for not paying attention, or drawing shirtless young men when we're supposed to be discussing a classic work of literature. Honestly, you're discussing the Bottom scene and you think it's bad that she's drawing a shirtless dude. This book is just so full of things that I put in to sound right, but aren't. It's like it was written by a Cthulhu. Like, someone who just fundamentally doesn't understand the human world. Sarah Allenson. No offense, okay? I mean, a little bit of offense. Come on, this is terrible. My face flushed red. I could feel the eyes of all the other students on me as Mrs. Phillips waddled up to my desk, snatched the drawing, and tossed it into the trash can. The rest of first period was spent in a haze of white-hot anger, mingled with a fog of light magenta embarrassment. I knew I should have been paying attention, but how could you make an example of me like that in front of the whole class? Then again, I was zoning out more than usual. Even though English was my best subject, was that really an excuse to just not pay attention? Yeah, never pay attention. That's what I did. Look at me. My next class, French, was no better. Even sitting next to Brie didn't cheer me up, and Monsieur Cousteau, that's the French teacher, dropped a mountain of homework on us right before the bell rang. Okay, I'm going to do the accent because it's written in the books. "This is the most important class you shall all take," he proclaimed in his outrageous accent, as we all zombie shuffled into the hall once again. Right, my most important class. That would probably mean something if every single teacher didn't say the exact same thing about their classes. "You're wicked distracted today," said Bree at snack break. Her mouth was full of beef jerky, so it came out more like, "For a wick distractor." "What's up?" "Shup." Bree, always eating. What a bitch. "I told you about my dream," I snapped with a sigh. "That boy, he was otherworldly, godlike even. I just can't get it out of my head." "It was bothering you then?" Bree inquired concernedly, swallowing the last of her beef jerky. Yes, I thought. And at the same time, I wasn't sure if I knew. "Is it bothering me?" I muttered, "or am I the one bothering it?" Bree gave me an odd look. "Are you sure you're okay? Because that didn't make any sense." Maybe, I thought, it doesn't have to make sense. The pounding of the bell cut our conversation short. It was time for marine biology, one of my least favourite subjects. What high school has marine biology as a I could blame my parents for that, but at least there was some consolation in sharing the hour with both Vic and Bree. Our teacher, old Mr. Cho, meant well, but he had an impenetrable accent and a terminal case of boring. Oh, she's getting a caddy. Except Mr. Cho wasn't there today. Thank God I'm not doing a Mr. Cho accent. He usually stood at the front of the classroom, leaning on his cane and quietly waiting for all the students to arrive, occasionally greeting them with a formal bow or a hoarse ni hao. Today, though, someone else was sitting behind his desk. The first thing that came to mind when I saw her lounging at the front of the desk, in the front of the class, was the look in her cat-like hazel eyes. It was the half-lidded, tight-smirked look of a woman scorned. What? You walk into the class, you got a substitute teacher, and you're like, wow, she looks like she's just been rejected. Anyway, her glossy auburn hair was coiled in an artful French twist. Under her half-slouched lab coat, her dress was glittery black, bare-shouldered, and shone in the fluorescent light like it was covered in beetles. The moment I beheld her, I knew, whoever this woman was, she was utterly and completely heartless. She sounds cool as shit. What are you talking about? I sat down between Bree and Vic, unable to look away from the mysterious intruder in our classroom. "Who is she?" Vic gaped. "I've never seen her around before." "I guess Mr. Cho's sick," said Bree, already taking advantage of his absence to break class rules and sip on a juice box. "It happens. Bree is always consuming something. I think it's like meant to be a character trait or something, but comes across really critical. Anyway, if she's our substitute teacher, I wouldn't mind if Mr. Cho took another few days off," said Vic with a smile. Bree rolled her eyes. But even though they were joking, I could sense something was wrong. Vic is not joking. The look in that woman's eyes. Something about it chilled me to the bone. The last few students sat down, and she stood up instantly. She strode across the tiled floor, her stilettos clacking with every sashaying step, and slammed the door. She fucking rules, okay? I don't know why you would wear stilettos and a sparkly dress to a substitute teacher in a high school, but who gives a shit? "Hello, my dear children." Her voice was low and husky, and her gaze crept across the room, lingering over every student predatorily. "I am your substitute teacher. Your principal's guidelines suggest that you should call me Ms. Epistola, but..." She laughed softly. "I don't think there's no need to be formal, do you? You may call me Scarlet, if you wish." Scarlet Epistola. Scarlet letter. That's very clever if you're like a dummy. Sorry. I'm trying really hard to actually not do asides all the time, but... "Wow," muttered Bree. "That's not very professional." "Wow," muttered Vic, and left it at that. "I am to teach you about marine biology," Miss Epistola continued in her sultry tones. "Though it is not my specialty, I will do my absolute best. Now, Who can tell me about the main qualities of invertebrates? I think I'm just getting more and more ridiculous with the voice. I'm going to knock it off. I raised my hand, as did Vic and 5 or 6 other students. It was easy stuff. She glanced around the room for a strangely long time. Then her feline gaze fell on Vic, and I was certain that her eyes flashed with something like triumph. Oh, I've read this before. I know what it means. It means now Voldemort can kill Harry and get the 7th Horcrux. I don't see how that applies here. Solve is a dummy. You, boy, in the back. Invertebrates are mostly found underwater, said Vic. Really? They're heterotrophs, and their main quality is that they have no spine. Very impressive, said Ms. Epistola. She grinned, her perfect white teeth shining. Now let's talk about the difference between saltwater and freshwater animals. Like, I don't know much about science or biology or whatever, like, not enough to rip this apart, but I'm guessing it's really dumb. Ms. Epistola didn't seem to want to teach, not that most of the boys in the class seemed to mind. She was apparently more interested in just asking questions, some of which didn't even qualify as marine biology. And more than anyone else, she called on Vic. Yes, he was always raising his hand, but so were a few other people. Why him? What is the primary characteristic of the mammal? She asked Vic huskily. It's like Biology 1's greatest hits, whispered Bree. Except with an evil teacher, I whispered back. Bree merely shrugged. She's a bit weird, but she's an adjunct and a sub. She's probably just not used to teaching this subject. Yeah, I don't think a lot of substitute teachers are well versed in marine biology. Marine biology dragged to a close. There's not a diss on substitute teachers, it's a diss on the whole concept of marine biology, because fuck it. Marine biology dragged to a close, and Vic left with a huge goofy smile on his face. Thinking about our creepy substitute teacher? Asked Bree, as we headed toward lunch. Vic frowned. She didn't seem creepy to me. She seemed nice. He shook his head as if to clear his thoughts. Really nice. The rest of the day was almost as slow as bio, or maybe my mind was racing so quickly that everything else seemed sluggish. Finally, after an exhausting Algebra 2 class, Bree, Vic, and I convened at his locker to collect his ancient book and wait for the hallways to empty. It was times like these, when the building was deserted and the day outside was deep grey, that the school truly felt like an abandoned asylum. All schools are asylums because all teenagers are clinically insane. And that's not a diss on the insane. I don't know who it's a diss on. Schools, I guess. Auditorium should be clear now, right, Bree? Vic's voice echoed in the corridor. He sounded like he was speaking from somewhere simultaneously vast and far away, even though he was right there next to me. I'm not even going to address that sentence, just leave it. It's fine, it's fine. It's not a terrible sentence, it's not the worst thing. It's just awkward. Bree nodded. No play practice today. In a few weeks I'm going to be wicked out of free time, but we're golden for now. Perfect, said Vic. The words hung there in the air for a moment. So casual, so relaxed. To me, though, they had a strange heaviness to them that I couldn't place. The words sounded like they were just waiting to be contradicted. Golden. Perfect. But nothing was perfect, especially right then, in that empty place. We were out of time. It was as if our entire lives we'd been working toward that moment without knowing it. And so the three of us headed for the auditorium, Necronomicon in tow, our steps echoing on the tiles like the drumbeats of destiny. So that's the end of chapter 2, and we are introduced to Vic, the ethnic best friend. I assume he is the Jacob of this book, and Bree, the dumb whore who eats all the time and has marshmallow curves. And I guess we hear a bit more about Andromeda, Ms. Scarlet Letter, and Monsieur Cousteau! Oh my god, Monsieur Cousteau is my favourite so far. It's amazing. I'm going to do another chapter in a minute, but some thoughts on this one. Sometimes it kind of feels like less of a Twilight ripoff and more of, like, there are bits of Harry Potter in there. And think she's only ever read YA literature. Like, I can't prove it, but I mean, this kind of feels like a fan fiction with a few of the names changed, and it's the 50 Shades model of literary success. So I can't fault her for that, because obviously it works. And I will be back with another chapter very soon, and I think it's the one where a new character turns up. A new, handsome, tentacled character. Anyway, thank you for watching. Follow me on Twitter at John_Snow_420 if you want to. You don't have to. And yeah. Awoken, Sarah Allenson. What the fuck?